some problem in the voice delivery of my mic. So today in this session I will teach you that how you can design a game very quickly in Scratch. So right now on my screen you can see there are some blocks, there are some elements, and I will show you that how you can design this game, a very interesting game, very quickly in the Scratch software. So first I will show you a small demonstration of what this game is about. So if I click on the full screen button and I click on the flag, now you can see there are some apples falling down from above, and I can control the movement of this ball sprite by the help of the arrow keys. Okay, so if I press the left or the right arrow key, you can see I am able to control the ball sprite, and the objective of the game is to collect the apples by moving the ball. So right now there is nothing like a score in this game or any strategy by the help of which we will be ending this game or throwing some challenges at the player of the game. But while making the actual game in the live session, I will show you that how we can add the scoring, how we can make this game challenging, how we can add more challenging levels to the game. Alright, so that's all what we are going to learn in today's session. Just to show you the various elements on the screen here, I have only two sprites in my game, the apple sprite and the bowl sprite, and we have a few blocks here by the help of which this game is actually working. Alright, so I hope you already know the objectives for today and what we are going to learn. So let's jump into the game designing now. So I will create a new Scratch file here, and after creating this new Scratch file, because I do not need the cat sprite in my game, so I'm going to delete the cat sprite by clicking on this delete button over here. So when I click the delete button, you can see the sprite has actually disappeared from the screen. And now what we need to do is that we will be adding a new sprite to our program. Okay, so we will add a new sprite here, and by adding those sprites we will be designing our game. So I'll click on the choose a sprite button, which is in the bottom right hand side corner of the screen, and then the first thing I need is I need a bowl sprite here, which is over here. So I click on the bowl sprite. As soon as I click, you can see I have this bowl sprite added to my project. Now if you had just had a look at the game which I demonstrated, the ball is always at the bottom of the screen, but when I added the ball sprite right now, it was in the center of the screen. So the first thing we need to do is we have to make sure that whenever I am starting a new game, the ball is always resting at this place on my stage. Okay, so that is the first thing we have to do, that we have to set the starting position of the ball. Also we were having a different background, so let me first change the background here. So we will click on choose a backdrop button, and then we will click on a suitable background, which is the blue sky here. That's the background I want to use. And now you can see the background of the stage has changed, and this is where I want my ball to appear every time my game is starting. So when I place my ball here, you can see there are two values being displayed, X and Y. Alright, so if I want to place the ball at this position on the screen, we can do this by the help of the X and the Y variables. So first I'll explain it to you that what the meaning of the X and Y variable here is. So whenever we talk about the Scratch desktop area, so let's say this is the Scratch stage area on my screen. So let's say this rectangle is representing the Scratch area, and this Scratch area is actually, the stage area is divided into parts. So let me divide this thing horizontally into two parts and also vertically into two parts. So we have divided our screen like this into two parts, horizontally and vertically, and where these 2 points are meeting right now, which is at the center, this is actually the dead center of the stage, the horizontal center and the vertical center of the stage. So the x value is actually the value which is on the horizontal axis, and y value is the value which is on the vertical axis. So if I want to show the value of my sprite on the horizontal level, then I will be using the x value, and if I want to show it on the vertical axis, we will be using the y value. So at the center of the stage, the value of both x and y is actually 0. So the value of x is also 0 at the center of the stage, and the value of y is also 0 at the center of the stage. So if I want to bring anything in the middle of the stage, we have to give this value of x equal to 0 and the value of y equal to 0. But if I want to move my sprite above in the upward direction, so whenever the sprite is moved in the upward direction like this, then we have to increase the value of y. So we have to do the additions in the value of y. So if I add anything into the value of y axis of the sprite, it starts moving upwards. And if I start subtracting from the value of y, then the sprite starts moving downwards. So in this manner I can control that my sprite is moving upwards or my sprite is moving downwards. Similarly, for the left and right movement, if I want to move my sprite towards the right hand side, we have to add in the value of x. So if I add something into the value of x, then the sprite will start moving towards the right hand side. And if I subtract from the value of x, which is minus here, then the sprite will start moving towards the left hand side. So in this manner, by making the changes in the value of x and y of the sprite, we can control the movement of the sprite. Okay, so let me show you how this thing actually practically works on the sprite screen. Alright, so now we are back into our Scratch screen, and right now the ball is right over here. And if I go to the motion category blocks, so this is the motion category, the blue color blocks, and in the motion category you will find a block which is change y by. Let me just zoom the block so you can see it properly. So this is the block change y by. Right now the value says 10. Okay, so what this block is going to do, that whatever the value of the y coordinate of the ball is, it will add 10 into the existing value. Alright, so please pay the attention here. Right now the value of y is -5, as you can see in this box over here. If I click on this block, you can see the ball sprite is moving upwards. So whenever I am clicking on this block is adding 10 into the existing value of y, which is displayed here. Right now you can see this is 55. If I click on this block once, the value becomes 65, and also the ball is moving in the upward direction. Okay, similarly, if I have another block, or maybe I can just change the value of this thing to -10. So if I change the value of this increment by -10 and I click on this block, now you can see the ball sprite is moving in the downward direction. So it means by changing the value of y, I can control the vertical movement of my sprite. If I add, it will go upwards. If I subtract, it will go downwards. Same thing applies to the x coordinate also. So I have this block change x by 10. So if I click on this block right now to run it, you can see my ball sprite is drifting towards the right hand side. But if I change this value to -10, which is going to subtract from the x value of the ball sprite, then the ball sprite has started to drift towards the left hand side. So in this manner, by using the coordinate values of x and y, we can actually control that I want to move my sprite towards the left hand side or towards the right hand side. So in this manner, X and Y values are used for controlling the position of the sprite. Okay, so we will be using this logic for controlling the block movement on our screen. So let's see how to do that. So as usual, to start any program, the first block which we need to use is the when flag clicked block, and then I want my ball sprite to start at this position. Whenever I start the game, this is where I want the ball sprite to be. Okay, so X coordinate is the horizontal coordinate and 0 is the center. So I always want my ball sprite to be horizontally at the center of the screen. So we go to the motion category and there is a block go to XY. Now go to XY can send the sprite to any specified location on the stage. So I want the value of X to be 0 and the value of Y right now is minus 100. Let's say this is where I want my ball sprite to be. So it is right now 137. So I'll say minus 137. Okay, now let's take this ball over here, and as soon as I click on the go button, you will find that the ball is now coming at the starting position. There you go. So as soon as I click on the flag button, then my sprite automatically comes to the starting position, which is here at the bottom. Alright, so in this manner we can control that the starting position of the block to be here. Now the next thing is that I want to control the movement of my ball sprite by the help of arrow keys. If I press the left arrow, the ball should start moving towards the left hand side. If I press the right arrow, ball should start moving towards the right hand side. So let's do that. Now I want this thing to be done on the press of the arrow keys, and whenever we want to capture the mouse click or we want to capture the keyboard activities, we have to use the block which is in the sensing category. So sensing means that we can take the input from different environments, we can take the input from different devices. So there is a block here which is key pressed. So this thing is this block is used to find out that which key on the keyboard has been pressed. Okay, right now it is saying space, but if you click on the arrow, you can see that there is a list of all the keys which is present on the keyboard. So let's say I want something to happen when I press alphabet A. So I can choose alphabet A from the keyboard. Okay, so in this manner this block is used for capturing the keyboard input. Now I cannot use this block individually alone, because you can see that this block cannot be attached over here. So we have to actually make a composite block here, a compound block here. Now when I want to move the ball towards the right hand side, whenever I press the right key, if I am not pressing the right key, then it shouldn't move. So this is a type of situation where we have to check if I'm pressing the right key or not, and this thing is done by an if block. Okay, so we'll go to the control category, we will drag one if then block from there, and we will put this key press. Now you can see the shapes, they are matching, right? So I can just put it over here. So now the block says that if key, and I want, let's say, right arrow. So if key right arrow is pressed, which means that if I press the right arrow key on my keyboard, then something should happen. So what I want to do when I press the right arrow key, I want my ball to move towards the right hand side. For moving the ball towards the right hand side, which is on the horizontal axis, which is represented by the X value, we will say change X by, and whenever something moves towards the right hand side, the value has to be increased. So let's say I want to increase it by 5. So if key right arrow is pressed, then change the value of X by 5, which will drift this ball sprite towards the right hand side. Let's see what happens. So you can see I have pressed the right arrow key on my keyboard, and whenever I'm running this if block, the ball is drifting towards the right hand side. Okay, now same thing I want. If I press on the left arrow, the ball should move towards the left hand side. So we will bring another if block from here. another key space pressed from here and change this value from space to left, and this time we want the value of x to be decremented or subtract. So change x by -5. Now by the help of these two blocks I can actually move my ball sprite towards the left or the right hand side. But if you have done this much of the coding, you will notice that when you are pressing the arrow keys on the keyboard, actually nothing is happening. The ball is not moving at all. Why the ball is not moving? Because right now these two blocks are not running. If I click on the flag button, that's it. The ball comes at the center of the stage. So let me attach this thing over here. Now we have the complete program. Click on the flag button again, and now I'm pressing the left and right arrow key, but still nothing is happening. So why is this happening? Because when I pressed the flag button, the program started running, and it started the first block, go to XY. Then it checked that if the right arrow key is pressed, but the right arrow key was not pressed that time, so nothing happened. After that, it moves on to the next block, which is if key left arrow is pressed, but left arrow wasn't pressed, so nothing happened. And after that the program ended, which means that my program is not looking for the right or left arrow keys. My program is finished. So what I want is that as long as I do not press on the stop button to stop the program, my program should look for the left and the right arrow keys, right? It shouldn't stop by itself. And to do this, we have a block in the control category which is called as the forever block. Now you can see it is a repetition block. You can see by the help of the arrow over here, which means that as soon as the block finishes, it will start running again. So if something is inside the forever block, it will never stop running unless we click on the stop button. So let me take these two blocks inside forever, and you can see as soon as you drag it, it automatically expands to accommodate everything inside. Alright, so now the program says that when I click the flag button, set the starting position of block to 0 and -137, and then forever, as long as the program is running, keep on checking for the left and the right arrow key. And if the right or the left arrow key is pressed, then make these changes in the X coordinate. Let's click on the flag button. Now you can see that there is a yellow border around my blocks, which means that the program is running. Okay, and if I press the left or right arrow key on my keyboard, I am able to move my ball sprite. Great. So that was our first objective in completing the game, that we should be able to control our player, we should be able to control our character, and we have achieved that objective. Now I don't want to move the ball sprite up and down. I just want it to drift left and right, because that's how our game is working. Alright, so I hope you all understand that how we have controlled the movement of the ball sprite on the screen. Okay, now let's move on to the next part. The next part of the program is that we have to add another sprite, which is an apple sprite. So we will click on choose a sprite button, and this is the apple sprite over here. I'll click on the apple sprite to add it to my game, and now you can see the apple sprite is appearing here. But if you see carefully, the size of the apple is too big, right? It's not appropriate size for our game, because right now the apple is actually bigger than the size of ball. So the first thing I would like to do is to decrease the size of this apple sprite, and to do that we go to the events category and bring the first block. This should always be the first block in your program on any sprite. In selective cases maybe no, but most of the times yes. Okay, so we have when flag clicked here, and if I want to change the size of this sprite, we have to go to the looks category, and inside the looks category you will find a block which is set size to. So it says set size to 100%. 100% is the actual size. For increasing the size, a value higher than 100, and for a smaller size a value less than 100. So let us reduce the size to 60%, and to see what happens, click on the go button, and let's see if the size is appropriately. Looks better now. Maybe 50% would be okay. You just need to experiment on your own. Yeah, 50% is perfect. All right, so now we have reduced the size of this apple sprite to 50%. Now this thing works differently from the bowl sprite, because if you remember when I showed you the game in the beginning, there were several apples falling from the top. So it means we need to have several apple sprites in our program. Only one apple sprite won't work. So what we need to do is we have to add multiple apple sprites in our game, right? Then only we can collect several apples. But in Scratch there is another way by the help of which you can create several copies of a single sprite and then use them in your program. So that's what we are going to do now. We will be creating multiple copies of this same sprite and use those copies to play our game. So now let me show you how the clones or the copies of the apple sprite is created. To do this, we need to go to the control category, and inside the control category there is a block here which says create clone of myself. Now create clone of myself, that this sprite is saying that please create my copy or create a duplicate copy of myself. That's what the meaning is. But as you can see, we just cannot put this block over here, because if I do so, there will be only one clone of this sprite created, and then the program will stop. That there are no more blocks after this. So first let us see what happens when a clone is created. I click on the flag button and the clone has been created. But where is the clone? I cannot see a second apple on my screen. Where is the duplicate copy? Well, the duplicate copy is behind this apple sprite, because the duplicate copies are automatically created behind the original sprite. Now remember, this is the original sprite, this one, which I have added in my program, but this is the clone of that sprite. Okay, this is not the real sprite that I have added. Let's see this thing once more. So this is my real actual sprite, and when I click on the flag button, you have the copy. Okay, so that is why if I add the block in this manner, there will only be one copy of this clone created. But what I want is, I want multiple copies of the clone, not just one. And for how long? I want the clones of my apple sprite to be created throughout the game, which means that just like the bowl sprite, I need a forever block here. So I'll go to the control category again and bring a forever block. Inside the forever block, I am going to add this. So what will happen, that as long as my program is running, the Scratch is going to create duplicate copies of this apple sprite. Okay, I'll show you later how we can use those copies. Let's run the program and see what happens now. So when I click on the go button, Scratch has actually started creating of the copies of the apple sprite, and those copies are here. So there will be hundreds of these clones created within a second, because the processing speed of the computer is very fast. So every time this forever block is repeated, a new copy of the apple sprite is created. But there is a limitation to the maximum number of copies which can be created. I'm not sure of that number. Maybe 256 copies of a particular sprite can be created at one point of time. Alright, so now we have got the copies, but how we can use these copies? So what we need to do is, we have to make these apple sprites fall from the screen from different locations, not just one location, but from the different locations from the top of the screen. So what I need to do is, I have to place these clones at different positions on the screen, which means that as soon as a clone is created, I have to take that clone to a random position at the top of my screen, sometimes towards the left hand side, sometimes towards the right hand side, sometimes in the middle. So how we can gonna achieve this? To achieve this, we have to use another starting block from the control category, which is when I start as a clone. Now this block is very important. Without the help of this block or understanding this block, you cannot create the games which utilizes several copies of a sprite. This is a must to know block. Okay, so I will show you now how this thing actually works. Alright, so what we have here is that we have an Apple sprite. Pardon me for my bad drawing skills. I'm not very good at drawing. So let's say this is the Apple sprite which we have created. And by the help of the cloning block, create clone of myself, we have created a clone of this sprite. Now let's say the black colors are the clones. So let's say we have right now 4 clones or 3 clones in our program. Let me have another clone here. Alright, so like this we have multiple clones in our program. So what happens, as soon as a clone is created in the Scratch, it automatically creates the block when I start as a clone. This block is automatically created for each clone. Okay, which means that there is a block created by the Scratch for this one, there is another block created for this one, there is another block created for this one, and there is another block created for this one. So each clone has a copy of when I start as a clone. So if there are 2 clones in my program right now, then there are 2 when I start as a clone block, and each block belongs to a particular copy. So each copy has its own set of blocks, and by the help of those copies we can control each and every copy individually. Okay, I'll show you, and then you will be able to understand better that what I am trying to actually demonstrate here. Alright, so let's go back to the Scratch screen. So when I start as a clone, so when the first copy of the clone is created, program will automatically jump to when I start as a clone. Okay, now what I want is, I want my Apple sprite to appear at the top. So let's do that. We will go to the motion category and bring the block, go to XY. Remember, in the case of the bowl sprite, we have just used this block to set the starting position. Now X, I want the blocks to spread at random position at the top of the stage. So let's say I want the value of X to be 0. And what's the value of this Apple sprite right now at the top? It says the value is like something 181. Okay, let's type this value 181. Alright, and now let us see what happens. We click on the flag button. It has started creating the copies, but now the copies are still here. Now why the copies are still in the same place? The reason is that the value of X is 0, which means that the horizontal placement of the Apple sprite, all the copies actually is at the same place. They all are appearing at X0 on my stage, and that is why they all are behind one another, you can see. But what I want is, I want these Apple sprites to be randomly placed at the top of the stage, sometimes left, right, center, wherever. How we can do that? So to do that, we have a block in the operators category, which is pick random. Okay, now operators category is the green color category, and as you can see that there are so many operator blocks. You can do plus, minus, divide, multiply, these kind of things in the operators category. Pick random is a block which automatically creates a random number. We don't know which one. The processor of the computer select that random number on the basis of some calculations. And we can set the minimum and the maximum range. So right now it says pick random 1 to 10, which means that computer can create any random number but only between 1 and 10, not less than 1 and not greater than 10. Alright, but what I want is I want the value of x to be anywhere from the left hand side up to the right hand side of the stage. So let's see what is the value on the extreme left hand side. The value on the extreme left hand side is minus 240. So let's choose that value. So go to pick random and I want minus 240. It will go inside the stage. I want this thing to be maximum at this point, which is minus 220. So we'll choose the value minus 220. So right now the value, the minimum value to which the x coordinate can be calculated is minus 220, and similarly on the other side it should be 220. So now this block is going to give me any possible value between minus 220, which is the left hand side of the edge of the stage, and 220, which is the right hand side edge of the stage, and it can give me any value between these two. So we have to use this block by putting it where the 0 is appearing. So I put it inside the 0, and now this completes my go to xy block. Okay, so the value of x can be anything from minus 220 to 220. Which value, I don't know. Computer is going to select it automatically. And what is the value of y? 181, which is always at the top of the stage. Now let us run the program and see how this thing works. There you go. Now you can see the copies are being created, and all those copies are now at the top of the stage, and they are spread across the entire width of the stage. So now we have achieved another milestone in designing our game. The next objective is that I want these apple sprites to fall down on the stage towards the bottom, towards the floor. In the beginning of the session, I explained that if you want to control the vertical position of any sprite, we have to use the y coordinate. So if I increase the value of the y coordinate, the sprite starts moving upwards. If I decrease the value of y coordinate, the sprite starts moving downwards. So as you can see, our sprites are already at the top, and if we want them to move in the downward direction, then obviously we have to decrease the value of y. So let's do that. I'll bring the motion category block, which is change y by, and let's say I want them to fall slowly towards the floor. So let's say minus 2 maybe. Okay, let's click on the flag button and see what happens. So now you can see the apples are still not falling. They are still at the top of the stage. Maybe the value is less. Let me say minus 100. And now they all are appearing. They are still a little bit down, but they all are appearing at the same place again. Now why is this happening? Because for each copy of the clone, when I start as a clone block is executed, it will place the apple at a random position at the top of the stage, and immediately after that the value will be minus 100 will be done in the y coordinate of the apple, which will bring it down to 81, because this is right now 181. So 181 minus 100, 81, and that is why all those apples are stuck here. So how to make them move? To make them move, we have to reduce the value of y repeatedly, which means that we are not going to reduce the value at once, but repeatedly, so that whenever the value of y is decreased, it shifts downwards. And if we do this process very fast, we will feel that as if the apples are falling down. That's what we are going to do. So it means we have to do the repeated decrement in the value of y, and whenever we want to do any repetition, we have to use the block which is forever block. But in this situation, the forever block is not suitable. Why? Because once the apple sprite has reached at the bottom of the stage, I don't want them to go down further. So we have to stop when they are already at the bottom of the stage. And to do this, there is another type of repeat block, which is repeat until. Now repeat until is going to repeat the statements until a condition is true. Alright. So what I want that as soon as the apple reaches the bottom of the stage, this repeat block should stop. Okay, it means I have to check whether my apples have reached the bottom of the stage or not. And how do we check this? We have to use the position of the apple, the y coordinate of the apple. So I will go to the operators category and I will use the block here, which is because at the bottom the value of the y coordinate is in negative, so I will use the block less than 50. And because at the bottom of the stage the value is not 50, so I am going to say repeat until the value of y coordinate is not let's say less than minus, let's experiment, I do not know the exact value, I have just calculated this logic, minus 160. Let's do that. And which value is less than minus 160? The value of the y coordinate. So we go to the motion category and bring the y position here. So now just read what the block is saying. Repeat until y position is less than minus 160. Okay, let's do that. And what I need to do is change y by maybe minus 3. Let's run the program. And now you can see that all those apples are now resting at the bottom of the stage. And after I think 256 clones have been created, Scratch will stop creating the clones. So what we need to do, we have to actually delete these clones if we don't need them. That I'll show you later how to do. Another problem here is that lots of apples are appearing at the same time. This is impossible to play this game because nobody can catch all these apples. So we have to slow down the process of cloning. We have to slow down the speed at which my Scratch software is actually creating these clones. So how we can do that? We go to the control category and there is a block which is wait. So I will add this wait block after create clone of myself. So after every clone there will be a gap of 1 second. Let's see. Now you can see that the clones are being created slowly. Great. The next thing I want is that I want the apples which are reaching at the bottom of the stage to be removed. That is for two reasons. First reason is that if we do not delete the clones, then after 256 clones have been created, our game would stop working because the Scratch is not going to create more clones then. Another reason is that if I missed collecting any apple, then that apple will be simply sitting at the bottom of the stage, which is not looks beautiful. It won't be nice to look at those apples which are simply lying at the bottom of the stage with no purpose at all. So for these two reasons we need to delete those blocks. And how are we going to do this? We just need to add a block here, delete this clone. Now why out of the repeat until? Because when they have reached the bottom of the stage, the repeat until block stops working and then automatically delete this clone would work. Now let's click on the flag button and see if this thing actually happens. And there you go. You can see as soon as the apples are touching the bottom of the stage, they are getting deleted. Alright, so now I have interaction in the game. I can move my ball left and right. And I can, the apples are also falling from the top. Now the only thing remaining is the interaction between the apple sprite and the ball sprite, which means that if my ball is underneath the apple sprite, then I have to collect those apples. Now in actual we are not going to collect any apples, but what we are going to do is that as soon as the apple touches the bowl, then we will make that apple disappear, and the players would feel that as if we have collected those apples in our sprite. So let's do that. Now this is where my apples are falling down. Repeat until y position minus 160, and this is where I have to find out that whether the apples are touching the bowl sprite. And to do this, there is a very easy method. The first thing is we need to have if block here, because I want to check whether something is happening or not. Then we go to the sensing category and bring the block here. If touching, here, if it is touching the bowl sprite. So it means that if the apple sprite is touching the bowl sprite, then what do I want to do? I just want to delete that apple. So delete this clone. And now we have successfully implemented the interaction between the bowl sprite and the apple. Let's see this thing in action. I'll go full screen, click on the flag button, and start moving my bowl by the help of arrow keys, and there you go. We have a playable game in no time. If I take my bowl sprite underneath the apple sprites, you can see that I'm able to delete. Alright, so we have successfully implemented the interaction between the bowl and the apple sprite. Alright, so now we have a running game, and I think this took us a maximum of maybe 35 minutes to understand all the programming concepts here and to learn that how we can make a running game. Alright, but there is a problem. If anyone has spotted, this single apple is always appearing. Let me play the game. You see, this apple is always here. It's annoying, and also it can confuse the player that why this apple is stuck at this position, why this is happening. This is that real sprite which I have added to my program, this one, because we are not changing the position of this real sprite. We are actually deleting and moving and working only with the clones. We are not doing anything with the real sprite, and we will not do anything with it. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are actually going to simply hide this from the screen. Just don't let it be visible to the players. So to do that, you go to the looks category and take the hide block from here and just add it after set size to 50%. So hide will not delete the sprite. Hide means that we are simply making it disappear from the stage, but the sprite is actually still there. So let's click on the flag button, and now you can see that the annoying apple sprite has disappeared. But what is that? My clones have also disappeared. I do not have any apples on my game anymore. We have spoiled everything. Yeah, no, actually no, there is a reason. If the actual sprite is hidden, then the clones will also be hidden automatically, because the clones are automatically getting their properties from the real sprite. Okay, that is why when I hid the real sprite, the clones are also automatically hidden. So what we need to do is that as soon as I set the starting position of the clones, I will show it, and then after it is shown on the screen, I will start moving them. So let's click on the flag button, and now we have fixed that problem. Great, so we have a fully playable game on our computer now. The last thing is to add the scoring, which would be the last thing which I will discuss in the live stream today. We need to add some scoring here and scoring means that we need to keep track of how many apples have been captured by my bowl sprite, and we have to update those values on the screen so that the user has this information that how much of the apples they have collected. And to do this, we have to keep track of that value. We have to keep track of a number that 2 apples have been collected, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So whenever we want to store the numerical data or the alphabetical data in the program, we use something which is called as a variable. So variables are used for storing the data in our program, and if you want, we can also make changes to those values. So to do this, you need to click on the variables category, and in the variables category, I need to make a variable first. So you click on this button which is make a variable. When you click on this, it will ask you for the name of the variable. So let's say I want my variable name to be score, and let this thing be selected for all sprites. There is no harm in choosing this, and click on OK. Now notice that as soon as we have selected that variable, this score variable is displayed here, and right now it says 0 because there is no number in the score right now. So the starting value is by default 0. But this value may get corrupted later on. You may see some negative value or some millions of the numbers in this value. So what we have to do is that whenever I start a new game, the value of a score must start with 0 only. Okay, so we go to our program, and we can do this anywhere. We can do this on the bowl or on the apple also, but I prefer to do this apple because this is where we are going to update the score. So the first thing I want to do is that as soon as my program starts, I want to set the value of that variable, which is a score, to 0, which means that for every new game, the value of a score will be 0. Now I want to increase the value of this score whenever we have successfully collected an apple sprite. And where we have successfully collected the apple sprite, here. This is where I am deleting the clone. Why I am deleting the clone here? Because it has touched the bowl sprite. And if it has touched the bowl sprite, so this is where I must give 1 point to the player. So I'll bring one block from the variables category, which is change the value by 1. So from here I will choose the name of my variable, which is a score. This is very important to choose the correct variable name, otherwise we will end up changing the value in some other variable and it won't work as desired. And change score by 1, and this must be before delete this clone, because if this clone is deleted, then the change score block won't work, because when the clone has disappeared, then there are no blocks anymore. Okay, so you should always put this before delete this clone. And also there is another reason that you cannot attach any block under delete this clone. I show you. If I bring delete this clone here, you can see the surface is flat here, so you cannot add anything under the delete this clone block, and that is the reason. If the clone is deleted, actually there are no blocks in our programs. Okay, let's see that. Alright, so now we have delete this clone here and we are changing the score by 1. Let's play the game. And now you can see that the value of score is changing. As soon as I am collecting an apple sprite, the value of a score is increasing. Let me show you full screen. So there is the value of a score, and it is increased every time I collect an apple sprite. Great, so we have a game which can keep track of our score now. But this game is boring. This game is not exciting to play. And why it's not exciting to play? Because there is no challenge to the player. The apples are falling, I'm moving my bowl sprite, and I'm just collecting those apples. There is no challenge. There is no challenge to the player that if he fails to do something, then this could happen. So I'm not facing any issue here, and after few minutes it is going to get very boring. So what we need to do is we have to add some challenge to the game. So our strategy for adding a challenge into the game is that if I miss collecting an apple sprite, there must be a penalty. Let's say I will reduce 1 point from my score. Okay, let's do that. So where my apple sprite is reaching the bottom of the stage, the apple sprite is reaching at the bottom of the stage once this repeat until block has stopped. Okay, if I have collected the apple sprite, then clone will be deleted at this point itself. But if my clone has reached after this repeat until block, it means that I have not been able to collect that sprite, and this is where we have to penalize the player. We have to decrease the score of the player. So let's change my variable from the variables category score and change this value to -1. And after the value has been changed, delete that clone, because once it reaches the bottom of the stage, I want it to be deleted. Let's go full screen and see how this thing works now. You can see the score has been reset to 0, and as soon as I skip an apple sprite, I am losing 1 point. Okay, let's see that. So now 5, my 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. Obviously, that was definitely expected, because I'm just decreasing the value from the score. I have not programmed anything in the game. What happens if the score goes below 0? And that's where we have to finish the game. So if the value of the score becomes 0, that's the end of the game for the user. Alright, so let's implement this last thing for today's live session. So as soon as the value of a score becomes 0, I want to finish the game. Okay, and where we have to check this, we have to check this after changing the score by -1. This is where I will be checking that what's the value of the score is. But if you see, the value of the score is already 0 in the beginning, which means that as soon as I start the game, it will stop. So what we need to do is we have to give some bonus to the user. Let's say I want to start my scoring from 3. So we are just giving 3 chances or 3 missed opportunities to the user, to the player of the game. So the value of the score is starting from 3. Every time I miss collecting an apple, the value of the score will be decreased by 1. And immediately after this, I will check that if the value of the score is equal to 0. So I go to the operators category, and this is where an equal to block is. And I bring the score variable. Sorry, let me show you from where it is. If you click on the variables category, all your variables are listed here. And this is from where you can drag them into your program. So right now I want to check the value of the variable score. So I'm going to drag this over here. And if the value of a score is equal to 0, so what I want to happen, I just want to stop this program. I want to stop everything. So this is what the stop all block would do. As soon as the value of a score becomes 0, finish, game will stop. Otherwise, the clone will be deleted. Let's run the program. Go to full screen mode and click on the flag button. You can see my starting score is 3. Now it's increasing because I am collecting the apples. Let's wait and let the score become 0. And there you go. As soon as the value of a score becomes 0, you can see the game has automatically stopped. Great, I'm feeling so happy, so excited after designing this game in such a short time. Alright guys, so that's what all this Scratch game designing was. This YouTube live session will be uploaded on my channel after some time. So if you missed the beginning of this video, or if you were not able to follow along with me, or there was something which you couldn't understand, you can visit the channel and you can watch this video later on, and you can maybe follow along with the video and design your own game. My next session will be again after 1 day. So today is Sunday. We will be having a live session again on Tuesday evening, 5 p.m. Indian time, and that day I will teach you that how you can add more gaming strategies into this game, how you can make different levels of this game, how you can make this game more and more challenging for the user, how we can have like superpower apples in this. For example, there will be a golden apple. So if you collect the golden apple, the speed of your ball will increase. The ball can go left and right very quickly, which will make it easier for the player to collect the apples. Then there will be dirty apples. So if you by mistake collect a dirty apple, the speed of your ball will decrease. Okay, so in this manner we are going to make this game more engaging, more challenging. And also I didn't talk anything about the sound. A video game without the sound is very much boring, just completely useless. So also in the next session I will show you that how we can add those sound effects and play those sound effects on certain kind of events. All right, so that will be our objective for the next live session, that I will be showing you how to add more strategies, how to add challenging levels, how to add specialty apples for bonus and for penalties to the user, and also how we can add the sounds to our game. All right, so that's the objective for the next week. That's all from me for today. Please subscribe to the channel so that as soon as I'm live on it, you get a notification in case you miss my live session. Also, there are so many Lego videos. If you are interested in Lego robotics, you can visit my channel, and there are complete building instructions and the programs also for those Lego robotics models. Also, there are the offline videos for designing the game in Scratch. So if you miss some fundamentals, some basic skills of Scratch, you can go watch those videos and learn how to program in Scratch. All right, so that's all from me today, and I will